Welcome back. The race for New York City Mayor is upon us. So we are asking how much political associations matter. Everyone's wondering how Christine Quinn's association with Mayor Bloomberg will impact her candidacy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the aisle, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that an internal memo from George McDonald's campaign says that Joseph Loder's, quote, close, almost indistinguishable identification with former Mayor Rudy Giuliani will make him, quote, simply unelectable. Both are running in the Republican primary, so you can take it for what it's worth, but does the memo have a point? How much do associations matter? Okay, let's start on the Democratic side, if you will, Christine Quinn, her relationship, close relationship with Bloomberg. I guess, Eric, I'll start with you. Does the relationship help? I don't know what to make of it, because some days when you pick up the papers, it looks like they're enemies, but then it sounds like he's supporting her, and he indicated that this week.
Well, there was an article in the New York Times today that said essentially the mayor sort of threw up his hands exasperated and said, like, I don't like anybody. He goes, he vacillates back and forth. I think that, the mayor is very popular. The mayor polls very well. The question is whether or not the mayor polls well with Democratic primary voters. Democratic primary voters who overwhelmingly voted against him in 2009.
And are still not over term limits.
And are still not over term limits. It's an organizing tool. It's a galvanizing tool. It's something that Christine Quinn supported. It's something that she ushered through. So as we continue to move forward, as more eyes come on the race, as people start to pay attention, as people start coming up with ads, these associations will be, I think the Bloomberg association will be something that inevitably will hurt her a little bit.
Ads.
Well,
We'll answer this question and then you can go to your point. Do you envision another Democrat running ads on television? I'm sure in a runoff, Bill Thompson will, but showing the close alliance between Bloomberg and Thompson?
Absolutely. They'd be crazy not to. I mean, she
Wow.
enjoyed, as the speaker and her close ties to the mayor, she enjoyed the benefits at the height of his popularity. And she often spoke in platitudes, never really took positions on a lot of issues.
What benefits? What were the benefits?
Well, when Bloomberg was riding high and his management of the city, she was able to just sort of be standing right next to him through all that and take a lot of credit for it without really having to come out on a lot of these issues. Now you see that she's in the middle of a Democratic primary where you have such a small, wing of the party that's voting in this election, and you're already seeing her start to distance herself. She was viewed as the pro-business Democrat out of the lot of them. She's already flip-flopped on the Inspector General with the NYPD. She's already flip-flopped on paid sick leave. So she's trying to distinguish herself now, because I do think it's going to be a net negative for her in a primary, but it will wind up, I think it would overall probably be better in the general election.
Before we take on sick leave, what about Joe Loder, deputy mayor under Rudy Giuliani? I'll start with the Democrat here.
I mean, Rudy. Rudy had, let's say, he had difficult relationships with minority communities in New York City, and
That's the way you put it. Difficult.
Difficult.
Okay.
I read a quote
Diplomatic.
I read a quote from Joe Lahota where he took a swipe at Calvin Butts after the Amadou Diallo case. He said something to the effect of, "What man of the cloth would make these kinds of statements?" Trying to undercut him. These are statements and actions that are going to follow him, and these are things that, in a general election, will not help him in a 6-1 Democratic town where the minority populations are very mobilized, they're organized, and they don't like Rudy Giuliani.
I mean, if you look at it strictly based on poll numbers, it's the exact opposite of Quinn's problem, which is, I think his ties to Giuliani will be very helpful to him in a Republican primary where the mayor is still very highly thought of and his policies. And then when you transition into a general with a larger swath of voters, there you pick up some of those negatives as well. But both of them have the challenge of trying to distinguish themselves and their own record and their own personality in candidacy in this race.
In addition, I mean, Lahota was Rudy's budget director. So on top of all the other stuff, he has to own all of the budgets that he helped push through the city council, the different cuts to social services, to things like that, that people will start to dig up. Researchers will start to look it up, and these things will appear in ads. They'll appear in mailers.
Okay, let's talk about Christine Quinn's flip-flop on paid sick leave. Quinn has announced that lawmakers and advocates have reached a deal. Under the plan, businesses with 20 or more employees will have to provide 5 paid sick days a year, beginning in April 2014. Businesses with 15 or more workers will have to follow suit by October 2015. Now, Mayor Michael Bloomberg is expected to veto the bill, but Quinn, who has long declined to bring this matter to a vote, says the council will override a veto. Is this all about politics?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, New York small business owners really got double whammy this week between the paid sick bill and the increase in minimum wage. And now they're all in a race to the left, who can outflank each other, trying to, endear themselves to Democratic primary voters. So I think this speaks hugely to her management style, to what kind of candidate she is, what kind of mayor she's going to be, if she's willing to cave so easily on an issue that for the past however many years, 3 years, I think she's been saying she's against this. She's been taking money from the business community, saying that she's not going to pass the bill. And now when she has political pressure to do it, then she caves.
Well, Eric, let me ask you this way. When you're the front runner, that's when all the heat is on you. Everyone comes after the front runner. Bill Thompson will get his shot. He'll face the criticism. But is that what this is all about, or is this really a flip-flop for political gain?
Well, we have to go back. The whole paid sick days goes back years at this point. It goes back to the previous council before term limits were overrode. This is something that the council has been pushing for a long time. And I mean, we can talk about the politics of it, but at the end of the day, 1 million New Yorkers are not going to be able to be fired because they don't have paid sick days, and I think that's a worthwhile goal. I think that they'll watch the implementation of it, and it'll help people. And then the second thing I see in this is that Quinn is reacting to other people. Mm-hmm. She's not getting out in front of issues. The reason she's flip-flop now, I assume, is because Bill de Blasio has been running around the city hammering her on this. Mm-hmm. Bill Thompson, same thing. John Liu, same thing. So she is not dictating the race. She's having the race dictated to her, and I think that's something that's very interesting. It's definitely worth watching.
Well, certainly when you're the front runner, you want to be the one that's calling the shots as opposed to having them indirectly play out around you. Staying on Christine Quinn, let's talk about the recent criticism of her as, quote, brash and pushy. Is that sexist? In a recent New York Times profile that came out this week, she's portrayed as combative and hot-tempered. The article said she is also, quote, sensitive to slights. I know a few elected officials like that. When a Queens City Councilwoman neglected to credit Ms. Quinn in a news release, the speaker retaliated by cutting money for programs in her district. Now, the article goes on to mention that she has used her control of the council's purse strings to punish certain council members. Now, here's my question, and Jessica, you're the woman at the table here. Is this sexist? Take off your Republican hat for a second.
No, I will. I can take
it
it
off. Is it sexist?
I think you would rarely, if not never, see an article like that published about a man. I don't think the question...
I saw it about Weiner, about his temperament. I saw it about Rudy Giuliani repeatedly throughout the years.
But it's always like an asset, and I don't think that's actually a problematic for her. I think it's a good thing, and she doubled down on it, which was the right thing to do. She said, "Look, I like to get things done. This is a tough town, and you need tough people." I thought that was exactly what she should have said. But this whole article is very telling of the fact that there are forces that are trying to orchestrate a takedown of her right now because she's so far ahead in the polls. But I think and you're going to see a lot more of this. But the bigger issue to me was the vindictive actions that she's taken. That raises a red flag in your management abilities. So
well, that's exactly what Bill Thompson said when he was here earlier this week. What if Christine Quinn were a man? Wouldn't she be called tough?
Well, my old boss, Anthony Weiner, got the New York Times treatment, the exact same, almost the exact, I went back and read it, almost the exact same article in 2008. They went through his temperament, how he dealt with staff, how the difference in his travel schedule, things like that, that were the Times essentially came to the same conclusions, that he was brash, that he was loud, that he rubbed certain people the wrong way. They wrote the same article about Michael Bloomberg in the waning days of his administration in 2008 before term limits. They wrote the same article about Bill Clinton when Bill Clinton was running around South Carolina with his hair on fire during the Democratic primary. They obviously wrote the same things about Rudy Giuliani. So I didn't see it as sexist. This is something that the Times has done repeatedly. It's the first instance where it's been a woman, I think, because this is the first instance where in New York City, at least, where a woman has led in the mayoral polls this late. She's perceived as a front runner. She's got the most money. So naturally, I think she's going to get the Times treatment. And at the end of the day, the vindictive storyline is the storyline that's going to drive. New Yorkers aren't going to care if people yell and scream.
I've got to take a break, but is New York ready for a woman, openly gay mayor?
Yes, if she supports the right policies, I think.
But you do feel it was sexist, the article.
No, I'm not saying I felt the whole thing was sexist. I think there were little pieces of it that were a little bit sexist to go after, you know, some of her personality traits. But yeah, it's all fair game, I guess, when you're running for office. I thought the New York Magazine article with talking about her heels and her conversations, I thought that was more sexist than, you know, than this. But.
Well, on that note, it is time for a break. But when we come back, we will turn to the issue of guns. The president spoke out yesterday saying, shame on us. The Senate is slated to vote on a guns package in April. But will that be enough? Stay with us.